Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very helpful public service announcement about how important it is to wash your hands every 5 seconds, otherwise known as a Warframe guide. It's here, it's finally here, new content, and holy sh**, it's really nice. I mean, we got a new relay, we got Best Girl Ducky, or there's also then the awesome design hologram of an annoying brother that doesn't understand personal space. Well, it's safe to say this update has brought a breath of fresh air to Warframe that has been sorely needed. So let's take this opportunity to break down the Scarlet Spear, shall we, and explain everything you're going to need to know about how to get the most out of this event, shall we? To start with, I think it's important to point out that the Scarlet Spear is not permanent. Think of it like the Plague Star event on Cetus. So it's likely that if you don't take part in the one that's active at the time of this video, much like other events in Warframe, it will likely be around again sometime in the future to offer those who didn't get the chance to dive in. And the great thing is, even if you haven't got a Railjack, you can still play, as the only requirement to join this is to be Mastery Rank 3. You don't need your own Railjack, you don't need to have done the Rising Tide, you just need to be Master Rank 3. Of course, if you want to sign up with your own Railjack, then you are going to have done that. You also don't need to have done the War Within, you don't technically need your own amp, although it does definitely help. Again, you just need to be Master Rank 3 so you can join other people's games. In a TLDR format, and in short, the event is the invasion of the sentients onto our front bloody doorstep. And Ducky don't like that, no she bloody well don't. Ducky is the leader of the Scarlet Spear Flotilla located on Earth. And when entering the flotilla, you'll have access to a small initial room with a few different access points. Ducky, located to the right, will give you a breakdown of what's going on the down low, as well as the ability to trade Scarlet Credit, which is your currency for this event, for an array of different arcanes you'd normally get from the Eidolons, as well as the 2 new weapons, the Basmu and the Seti Lacera, the new Stance Former, useless, and the new Ballroom Simulacrum. I'd like to emphasize as a disclaimer that the prices of these items are subject to change, and balancing of the entire event is even subject to change in general, as it's still quite new and DE need to know what they have to change. Then in the middle of this room, you'll have a hologram depicting the time left for the current Murex, which is kind of the objective of everything going on here. Now, it's worth mentioning that at any given time, we'll be fighting one Murex, which is a big ship where all the shit is being launched from. And that will then last for a little over 3 hours. In that time, you'll have to sign up to flotillas. These flotillas will designate how progressed through fighting that Murex they are. Once the Murex has had 100 of its invasions defeated, it will close out the flotilla. So the best thing to do is to sign up to a flotilla that's a little under 75 out of 100, and especially if you want to have a good amount of time dedicated to farming these. This hologram in the middle of the room will show you the amount of squads dedicating to which parts of the event. You have the ground squads that enter their missions to the right of the hologram, and the Railjack crews entering to the left through the nodes in the wall. Each node will give you different objectives that will directly tie in with the other mode. So if you're a ground crew, what you do in your mission will help the Railjack crew, and vice versa. But more about that once we get into the description of the specific modes themselves. The idea here is you will take part in whichever mode you wish and fight off the hordes of sentients, earning Scarlet credits along the way, as mentioned earlier. Once the timer in the middle runs out, the flotilla will close for 10 minutes, while a new Murex comes along and bothers us some more. It's a rotation, if you will. Or at any given time, you'll be fighting one Murex, that Murex gets finished, you have 10-minute alleviated wait time until the next one. At this point, you will get an email from Ducky after one Murex is finished to tell you how well you did on that previous session, giving you a bonus reward of Scarlet credits and a rank depending on how much you contributed, which you can then use to show off to all your friends how well you did. And then to that last session of Murex, you'll also be designated how many points you earned. So not only do you earn points by doing the mission on its own, but you also gain points for how much you took part in that last session. Alright, so we now know what the setup is, and we kind of know what the rewards are. Now, you probably want to know how to actually do the event, right? Well, before you even get going to actually get into a mission, you need to buy an Uplink from Ducky for 5,000 credits and equip it to your gear wheel, as this is a core component to the mechanics of both the Railjack and the ground crew. So we'll start with the ground segment and get to the Railjack in a mo. We will explain in due diligence the general execution on the, and then some optimal frame choices and weapon choices and stat choices for your endeavor to help you through this easier. But it's worth keeping in mind that this is an event that everyone can take part in, so even if you don't want to fully optimize yourself, you can still avidly farm these points quite simply just by jumping in and giving it a go, as this is designed in a way to give newer players ease of access to some rewards. But if you decide to go further into higher levels, you can definitely get a bit of a test on your skill set, if you will. So, the ground crew. Starting your mission from the terminal on the right of the room, you'll be sent to Earth in order to battle the invading sentient forces. You'll be given a heading, and once reaching said location, you'll have a gigantic sentient penis crash land in front of you, also known as a Chondrix. The way this goes is quite simple. The Chondrix is a dirty, stinking flasher that likes pulling its gown up and flashing you with its shiny ball. To show how naughty this flasher is, you'll have to shoot that big ball every time it shows it. And at every 33% of health lost, the Chondrix will then close up its belly and ball, and at which point you will need to destroy all the remaining sentients in the area to get it to open up again and continue onwards. Whilst exposed, the Chondrix will be summoning a range of sentient enemies. Finally, a chance to break out that paracesis, am I right? Well, these enemies are all pretty straightforward and share the similar trope that all sentients do, always having an ability to gain immunity to and damage resistances to the damage you're dealing to them. So using your operator's amp, for those who have it, will reset those resistances and make life much easier. The only sentient here that's really a bit out of the normal and one that you need to worry about is the new one, the Aerialist. This enemy is completely immune to damage and deals a lot of it too. To expose him, you'll need to destroy the glass canisters on his chest and then nuke him down before they regenerate, or before he touches you with his big appendagey fingers. Once the Chondrix has been brought to near death, you will be told to deploy your Uplink, at which point the Grineer forces, by the way, they're a Grineer trying to kill you as well, because Saga's Rook's an asshole. Yeah, they'll try to destroy those Uplinks you've just deployed. Now, the Uplinks do regenerate very, very slowly over time. And as of this video, the only way to actually heal them is with Korra's Kavat thingy. Yes, that. Although, that might very well be changed in the future. So you have to defend these Uplinks with your life, or bring a Korra and help heal them. The more Uplinks you put down, the faster they will scan the Chondrix. And once it has reached full percentage, it will then send off the information to the Railjack crew so they can do their thing. Once that's done, the Chondrix disappears and it all begins all over again. Now, there's going to be some information on the screen in regards to the scoring, as it's a little bit convoluted. But in short, the more Uplinks you deploy and the more kill commands you get, the more points you earn, as the kill commands are kind of like the designator as to what you're going to earn. And once you've completed 3 Chondrixes, you can either leave or stick it out for more points. Keeping in mind, the maximum wave you can go to is 17. And at that stage, the enemy are going to be well over level 150, so do keep that in mind if you plan on going for more than just a few waves. And every new Chondrix will then increase in the difficulty and level of all enemies of that mission. So essentially, this is a bit of a glorified survival, mobile defense, interception kind of dealio. Now for the Railjack Raid. So this one is slightly harder in terms of raw numbers, but slightly easier in terms of execution, or at least a bit simpler anyway. But we're going to break it down into components all the same like we did with the ground segment. So right off the bat, you'll spawn into a Railjack mission, which is kind of like your typical Railjack mission you'd normally do. Only here, you won't have access to your normal forward guns. Instead, you'll have a satellite of sorts, which you need to guide towards the objective marker. And you'll be also getting sentient fighters and Grineer cruise ships trying to attack you through this process as well. So it's worth keeping an eye on your Railjack even when you're inside one of the Murexes. You'll need to head towards one of the objective markers and then parking it inside the arm tendrily bits. There's a little cavern you can go into that will allow you to protect yourself from most of the sentient forces. Even if you do park yourself inside these little cavernous areas just outside the entrance to the Sentient Fortress, you can still technically be attacked, but it will generally protect you for the most part. You'll just have to keep an eye on it, and if you are being attacked, you'll need to jump back and take care of any boarders, whether it's the Sentients or the Grineer that have jumped on board. If the cruise ships spawn, you'll need to take care of them like you would do normally. Once you are inside this Murex Fortress thing, similar to the ground mode, you'll be given an objective marker, and you'll deploy your uplinks in said objective marker. You'll want to make sure that you put more uplinks down for each person you have with you, as the more you have, the more efficient it will be. There's only one hindrance here, and that is that there can be disruptors that will spawn around the area. You'll want to take those out if they do eventually spawn. Once 9 kill commands have been delivered from the ground crew, allowing you to complete your objectives 9 times, the Murex you are in will retreat, and you can choose to keep going up to a maximum of 5 Murexes, or you can stick around and then leave. So in short, the simple fact of it is, you stick to 1 Murex for 9 kill codes to get a good reward, or you can go for another one afterwards. Either way, the world's your oyster. It's very similar to the ground mode, it's just more like being in a Sentient Fortress. Really, this mode isn't hard in the execution of it, as everything is quite transparent as to what you need to do, and as to what's going on. It's basically like your typical Sentient Fortress mission, really. The hard part comes with the sheer amount of sentient enemies you'll end up facing, and that, ladies and gentlemen, leads us on to our next final chapter, which is, what should I take? So in terms of optimization, this is only something you should plan on doing if you are intending to go beyond an initial first few waves. As mentioned earlier, you can do 3 or 4 waves of both the Railjack and the ground mode with no real issue, so long as you have some level of decent modding. So with that, let's take a look at an ideal ground setup, keeping in mind this is all very subjective, and you should always play with what you find the most enjoyable, as there is no level of hardcoreness to this unless you plan on going beyond just a few waves. So some interesting things to note when you're building up for your weapons is modding for corrosive will allow you to directly deal more damage to the Condrix's weak spot and to most of the Grineer enemies you'll be dealing with as well. So that will help greatly with the ground segment. And it's not really a bad choice for the Railjack either. However, other good alternatives are Viral and Radiation, both of which will help versus the sentient enemies and the Grineer alike. However, so long as, again, you have some half-decent damage mods on, so long as you're specializing your weapons to what they focus on, you shouldn't really struggle here. Specializing the element type is something you'll do if you plan on pushing yourself beyond the normality of what most people will do before they leave. As for frames in both ground and Railjack mode, it's worth having something that can slow or crowd control. My recommendation is either a slow Nova with a good slow build, Limbo with a good range and duration build, making sure that you cancel your bubble when the Condrix's orb is vulnerable, as if you have your bubble up at that point, it actually cancels out your ability of shooting it. You can also then use a Vauban with a good Bastille build, or heck, even using Frost's bubble. And his slows as well, can be nice for that. Then for the ground team specifically, you want a buffer frame. A frame that can up your damage. Chroma, Rhino, Oberon with Smite and Fusel, and Wisp are all excellent choices here. But anything that can help you scale your damage better versus the insane resistances of the Condrix's weak spot is important. What you have to realize is, again, these will only play dividends once you get beyond the first few waves. In a team of 4, it is always worth having at least 1 crowd controller and 1 buffer. And then likely the other 2 people can then look at being a high DPS frame. This can be something in any of the following. Mesa is hands down one of the best choices for a DPS frame in this scenario. Sentience and Grineer alike will fall heavily to her insane damage output from her Peacemakers, and she absolutely wrecks for both the ground and the Railjack mode. And similar to that of Mirage, Mirage would also be a very good choice here with a good Hall of Malevolence build, and she can then obliterate most things in her way whilst dealing huge damage to the Condrix should you need to. Otherwise, if you want to use any frame here, things like Excalibur, anything with an exalted weapon, anything that can have high base power damage will work well. In terms of the weapons you use, you want to use weapons with extremely high base damage. But again, modding can always compensate for weapons that have lower base damage. You almost have to treat fighting the Condrixes and the Sentients like fighting an Eidolon, where higher base damage and higher crit chance builds will generally work out better due to the scalability with buffing. But the TLDR of all of this is the following. Grab an uplink, choose your mission type, defend the uplink, kill the enemy, and set your expectations based on the way you've optimized your team. It is as simple as that. This is not a very complicated challenge, but the rewards are highly satisfying, and you definitely want to take advantage of it whilst it's around. Otherwise, you might risk not getting those delicious, delicious arcanes. And there is some level of competition here because there are some scoreboards you can take a look at in the Scarlet Spear itself as well. Also, this is the only time you get to hear Ducky say the word pillock, and I, being a stereotypical British sort, absolutely adore that. So, the Scarlet Spear, it's an interesting new event. It's got a bit of a issue with bugs right off the bat, but hey-ho, what Warframe update these days doesn't? But I would love to know what you think of this update. Please leave a comment down below about whether you like it, what you think about it, and I think there's going to be a video in the near future which goes into a bit of detail in regards to how the state of Warframe is at the moment, because I've got some voices I'd like to put across. Not bad stuff, not good stuff, but some critical thinking about how we can best look at Warframe without being, oh, the game's terrible sort of mentality, because we need to be constructive here. And I personally quite like this update. It's definitely something new. It's something we can all have a bit of a fresher breath air with. But again, I'd love to know your opinion, so please leave a comment down below. If you feel like helping me out, then we do stream every single day on Twitch with Warframe and some Escape from Tarkov here or there as well. If you feel like joining us, there'll be links down below. Make sure you follow my Twitch and my Twitter for daily updates. And I will see all of you top hatters in the next video. Ta-ra!